G'day, battlers, and we are back for Silph Arena Season 5, officially kicking off in January 2023. So soon now, but we have two metas that are coming for January and February respectively, that being the Ember Cup from Silph Factions and the Naiad Cup, a brand new meta for February. Now, if this is like weird to you that there are two metas, it is new. It is because there have been some changes to the Silph Arena. If you haven't been keeping up to date with those changes, I'll link a video up there that I did over on the Silph Arena's YouTube channel, just sort of discussing some of the changes that are coming, including the fact that we are using a wave system. So instead of having six ranked tournaments per month, you have 40 ranked rounds over 2 months. So you can, if you really want to focus on Ember Cup, you can use all of your 40 ranked rounds in Ember Cup, or you can sort of spread them out over January and February for the Ember Cup in January and the Naiad Cup in February. But enough about that. First off, the Ember Cup, obviously that's the first cup that's coming up in quite a short amount of time in January. So if you do want to participate in that one, I've got another video for the Ember Cup Meta Simplified up there. I did it in the Factions video, so it's the Ember Cup and the Vanguard Cup in that video, but you know, you can just watch the Ember part of that video. There haven't been updates to the meta. It's still the same that it is in Factions right now. So if you've already been playing the Ember field, getting some practice, then you might already be sort of ready to go use a team for the Ember Cup. There's also already content out there for the Ember Cup meta, so you should be able to get your sort of get rolling, and also you can, you know, get practice for Factions from the Ember Cup, because Factions runs through the end of February. I like this has been a very complicated for people who aren't like as up to date with all of the Silph news, but the summary is that Ember is your January Cup, Naiad is your February Cup. If you want the January Meta Simplified, link is in the description down below. Let's get onto the Naiad Cup. So the Naiad Cup is the brand new meta coming to February 2023. We're 2 minutes into the video now, but here we go. With allowed typings of Bug, Dragon, Psychic, and Water. With fly-in Pokemon of Greedent, Miltank, and Snorlax being added to the meta. There are also bans on Dark types, Fairy types, and Rock types, with additional bans on Araquanid, Galarian Articuno, Cresselia, Forretress, Lantern, Medicham, and Toxapex. So again, all of the resources are going to be on that link, silph.gg/cup/Naiad. I hope that Naiad is how you say it, because it is definitely a word that is sort of jumping out as me as I've never seen this before, but, you know, maybe it's wrong, but it's sure what I'm locking in now. Let me know in the comments if it is incorrect. But regardless, let's jump into the Naiad Cup Meta Simplified and take a look at what we have got here. For the thumbnail, okay, and so now we've got 5 main groups on the graphic here. Just going clockwise from the bottom left group, we have the sort of Dragons plus Pelipper in the bottom left, with Como-O, Gyarados, Dragonite, Altaria, Lugia. Most of them are either, well, they're Dragon types or they do Dragon damage, like Gyarados and Lugia, and then Pelipper just sort of fits into that slot, but we'll talk about how Pelipper's a little bit different as we go. In the next slot, we have Snorlax and Greedent, to the 2 normal types that have been airdropped in. I haven't included Miltank on the graphic, just because I feel like Miltank isn't as good as the other 2. I mean, it has access to rollout, so it does a little bit better against the flyers. It's got access to body slam, so it's still quite spammy, and does a same type attack bonus body slam as well. So it is like, it's not a bad Pokemon, but I just don't see it being the meta defining one. So I've sort of left Snorlax and Greedent here. I guess it's also doing super effective damage to the ice types with its rollout, but I mean, if I'm wrong, it really just does slot onto that same slot for the most part with Snorlax and Greedent. And the top, we have Psychic types, but they're sort of Swiss Army knives. And I'll talk about what moveset is what I believe is the best one in this meta, because there's definitely sort of something that I feel like is way and away better than the other possible movesets. Then we have the Ice Waters with Lapras, Dugong, Celio, and Walrein. And then in the bottom right, we have the sort of Bug, Electric, Jellicent. It's a little bit of a mashup, but we've got Galvantula, Genesect, I think that's Charjabug, and Jellicent all hanging out in the bottom right there. So let's just kick it off by starting with the bottom left group, the sort of Dragon-ish group. Dragon, as it is in every single meta, is just doing big neutral damage. It's largely unresisted. I mean, Genesect resists it because of its steel typing, but there's really not much that cares about the dragon damage that is coming their way. Well, They very much care, I should say. It's the complete opposite of that. They definitely care. It does big damage to everything, and it's really just a case of whether you can do more damage to the dragons by the time that they've done a ton of damage to you. So that's why they generally are beating the Snorlax and the Greedent, because they are sort of more bulky Pokemon. They aren't about damage output, so the dragons are just sort of able to pack on all of that damage on before they're able to counter them. If we sort of follow the arrows around clockwise, we can then see that they're losing to the Swiss Army Knife Pokemon. And I guess I should talk about the moveset now. Hypno, I feel like it's probably best to run Thunder Punch, Ice Punch. Thunder Punch for the sort of ice waters that are running around, Pelipper as well, and then Ice Punch for that dragon coverage. I mean, that's where this sort of arrow comes from with the Swiss Army Knives beating up the dragons. I think that Ice Punch sort of is an important part to give yourself that little bit of coverage there. And then when it comes to Mew, I think that similarly, you sort of want those two coverage points. So I think that Dragon Claw for spammy damage, again, really neutral. The same reason why the dragons are good will make Mew good with Dragon Claw while also doing super effective damage to the dragons. But then also I think Wild Charge is probably a good secondary move because again, you're hitting all of those ice waters for big damage. You're hitting up Pelipper, Gyarados, big damage. And then also just like even neutral damage, like more so than Dragon Claw. It can do masses of damage if you can land it. So I think that that's probably the way to go. Dragon Claw, Wild Charge for Mew, and then Ice Punch, Thunder Punch for Hypno. So that's why those two Pokemon generally are going to beat this sort of Dragon Flyer group. If we follow the arrows around again, we've got the blue arrow coming in from the ice waters, and that's just because they're ice type. I mean, they're doing big damage to flying types and dragons. That's what they do. And then we have the sort of bottom right group that's a bit more of a mishmash. I mean, obviously, Pelipper is not going to be beating Galvantula. Galvantula is just doing so much damage with Electric to the double super effective. Sorry, I'm making a lot of like other sounds. I'm just hitting things. Well, I'm very expressive with my hands. But Electric is doing a lot of damage to the water flyers, so Pelipper and Gyarados. And then they're just generally, other than that, sort of just being out damaged by the dragon stuff. So overall, that group kind of beats them, especially because the dragon typing does resist electric. Genesect isn't electric. It does have a lot of options for its Techno Blast. But you know, it is what it is. And then Jellicent is just kind of in this group because again, it doesn't quite, it takes more damage from the Dragon Breaths. It does have access to Ice Beam, which I think there's going to be decisions as to what moveset you want to run. If you want to go for Ice Beam, or if you want to go for Shadow Ball, or maybe if you want to drop Bubble Beam. I think that all three moves have play in this cup. So it's going to be a little bit about what your team needs and whether Jellicent with a particular moveset can fill that gap. I think, anyway. And then I guess we'll move along to the next group, the Snorlax and the Greedent. Already going through how they generally lose to the Dragons. If we follow back around to the Swiss Army Knives, they're generally going to win. Snorlax has access to Lick, doing super effective damage, and Body Slam charging up pretty decently fast. Greedent also just doing sort of, very bulky, able to get those Body Slams pretty quick, and that's just kind of what they do there. Then also generally going to be beating the Ice Waters. Snorlax has access to Superpower, so that is going to do a lot of damage to those Ice types, and that's generally where those wins are coming from. Can go a little bit wrong if if they shield a superpower, then you land a debuffed Body Slam or something like that. The ice types can sort of come back and beat you, but in a lot of cases, Snorlax is going to be able to win that one. Greedent, not as convincing of a win, but still is able to do pretty decently in those matchups as well. Actually, I should have mentioned that Greedent also has access to Crunch, which is why it does really good against Mew and Hypno as well. In the bottom right group, though, it's sort of like, these are sort of the two neutrally matchup groups, the normal types and the electric-ish group, the electric bugs plus Jellicent. So don't take this as gospel, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Snorlax still going to do really well against Jellicent with the lick damage, and they're both going to resist the ghost damage coming from a Jellicent, so... And Ice Beam's not super effective. Bubble Beam's not super effective. So Jellicent's just not great. Galvantula is just a little bit squishy. Like, it even takes a fair amount of damage from the low attack stat Body Slams from Snorlax, Greedent as well. And, Charge Bug and Genesect do a little bit better. But just in general, that's where I've drawn the arrow. Swiss Army Knives, talking about them versus the normals and the dragons. Thunder Punch and Wild Charge, giving you damage over the ice waters, and then generally losing to those electrics and bugs and ghosts in the bottom right. Bug and ghost, sorry, both super effective to the psychics, and just sort of generally able to overcome it with Galvantula with Lunge too. And maybe a reason why you might want to go for Shadow Ball on your Jellicent. Also, I mean, there is consideration for running Shadow Ball and Hypno, so that you've got the sort of mirror match, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how widely used Hypno is. If Hypno is sort of the meta dominator, then maybe Shadow Ball. You'd probably go for Shadow Ball Thunder Punch. Or maybe you go for... I don't know. I think that you should definitely have at least one of Ice Punch or Thunder Punch on your Hypno. Other than that, I guess, is your decision to make. Again, depending on what your team needs. And last group, Ice Waters, going to lose to Electrics. That's just kind of how it goes. Kind of what you can expect. Genesect able to do some big Techno Blasty damage as well there. But that is overall sort of the main meta, how I see it for the Naiad Cup. It's obviously in February, so it's still a little while away. So maybe Niantic drops some brand new Pokemon that breaks open the meta. I mean, the January Com Day is Chestnut, and that's not even eligible for this meta, so don't have to worry about that. But we will just have to wait and see. But I think this gives a general overview of what the meta is going to look like, just because at the moment we also don't have the PvPoke rankings for the Naiad Cup, just because he's taking a bit of a holiday. He's taking time for the family in the holidays, which is definitely, he deserves it more than anyone. So with that said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. Let me know what you feel about this whole wave situation, 2 metas, or whether you're going to try and just burn up all your ranked battles in the Ember field before it gets to the Naiad Cup, or if you want to save some for the Naiad Cup because it looks a little bit more dynamic and interesting. I feel like you could probably, pick one Pokemon from each of these 5 groups, and you've got a pretty good starting to a team, to be completely honest with you. I feel there might be, I feel like the core breakers are kind of the Swiss Army knives that can sort of do anything you want them to do. I kind of hope that we see some Focus Blast Hypnos do some big damage to a Snorlax or a Greedent, but we'll just wait and see how that all goes. But yeah, thank you to my patrons and YouTube members as always, because they are some fantastic people. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to check out the other Ember Field meta if you haven't already, or do anyway. I don't know. I'm not your dad. Do what you want, man.